you heard me mentioning now. 20 right now, but heading to a high of 32 today, and at times it's going to feel like 39. This heat warning remains in effect for Ottawa, along with most of the province, in fact, and Western Quebec. And Ottawa Public Health is urging caution. Here's Birgit Eastenhagen.
It's really also important to check on people that are living alone. So call them up, see if they're okay. Ask them to, wear lighter clothing. Ask them to drink a lot of water, and if necessary, put their hands and feet in some cool water, because that will cool down the body.
Well, many people do not have the luxury of air conditioning, but there's a growing push to change that. Vancouver will soon require some new buildings to have AC. And in Hamilton, the city's proposing new rules that would require landlords to keep temperatures in units below 26 degrees. And that could mean installing central cooling or individual AC units. So, should Ottawa follow suit? My next two guests have different takes. John Dickie is the chair of the Eastern Ontario Landlords Organization, and Stuart Klasniga is an ACORN tenant advocate who launched this campaign in Hamilton. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Stuart, if I could start with you, why do you think landlords should be required to provide air conditioning?
So I disagree with the statement coming into this. I don't think that air conditioning is a luxury anymore. Extreme heat events have major health implications. Various life-threatening conditions can occur when the body cannot maintain its core temperature. The science is clear here. And if we look at British Columbia back in 2021, according to the report put out by the government, 90% of the 619 people who died during the heat dome were 60 years of age or older. 91% were registered with at least one chronic disease registry. So, as we continue to see the effects of climate change, heat events will continue to occur more frequently, more intensely, and for more extended periods. And those will be most affected by and most at risk of heat-related deaths and illness. Because of this are seniors, people with disabilities, low-income households, and racialized and tenant communities. So,
Stuart, have you heard from actual tenants who are struggling? I mean, what are they telling you about how they are dealing with the kind of heat wave that we're experiencing right now?
We did our own survey last year when we launched the campaign. We heard Damien Ash earlier, a member of Hamilton ACORN as well, saying he doesn't use his stove in the summer just to avoid the extra heat. And many people were similar. We found many people had difficulties sleeping. So from our survey, 70% reported being impacted by extreme heat in their home, and the top 5 ways were poor sleep, fatigue, headaches, and an inability to concentrate or complete tasks. So.
Okay. John Dickie, chair of the Eastern Ontario Landlords, do you think there should be a maximum temperature for units?
I don't think it's reasonable to impose a maximum temperature on a one-size-fits-all basis and a retrofit basis. In other words, in buildings which are already built, because many buildings were not designed for central air conditioning. They lack the appropriate ductwork between units. They may not have sufficient power to safely deliver that much air conditioning throughout the building. There has recently been a provincial law. It's been enacted by the legislature, but not yet given royal assent, which would mandate that tenants are entitled to install air conditioning in their rental units, provided that is done safely and so on and so forth. So the Eastern Ontario Landlord Organization certainly sympathizes with tenants who have issues with heat. Many of our larger members provide a cool room in their building. They may check on tenants. They try to do their part to help with these situations. But as I said, many buildings are not built so that this is either feasible, or if it's feasible at all, it could be extremely expensive. And there are better ways to deal with this, to support the particular people who need this support.
So just so I understand, John, you're not arguing that a person does or doesn't need air conditioning. You're just saying that it's on the tenant to see that they have it.
Essentially, yes, because when a landlord and a tenant enter into a tenancy, the tenant has presumably chosen that apartment as one that they want to rent. That apartment comes with certain amenities. It may be a certain size. There may be a swimming pool, or there may not be a pool. It is in a particular location. There's a whole package of services that the tenant rents when they rent the apartment. And if they particularly want central air, those units are available, although they tend to be somewhat more expensive. But a tenant can look at an apartment and see, well, does it have a cross draft? So that'll help with the heat. Is there a window where I can install an air conditioner unit? Does the building have enough power I can put one in? And if air conditioning is important to them, then in principle they can obtain it.
Okay. If
they have an income problem, that's a different problem.
Okay. Stuart, what are the reasons why some tenants couldn't get their own air conditioning?
So tenants are, of course, limited to temporary solutions. And so my apartment, I used to have window shaker units. They did a great job. They did not cost that much hydro to run. When new windows went in, that was great, nice to see, but now the openings were not large enough for my window shakers anymore. I had to switch to portables, which use more power and provide less cooling. So now I see a difference of about $200 a month as the largest discrepancy in my hydro bill. If I had access to permanent solutions, I would go with the most economical, the most environmentally friendly option, which is a split system. Mr. Dickie is talking about the cost of retrofitting for central air. That's not necessary. A split system, evaporator, condenser, one on one side of the wall, the other on the other side of the wall. It's a very little hole that needs to be drilled through, the same as if you're installing cable or something into the unit. That is the best option, and permanent solutions are what we're looking for, especially as this is a climate justice issue.
Let me get in there, Stuart. I just want to ask John, a Toronto emergency physician, Dr. Tila Johnson, says the extreme temperatures increasingly caused by climate change make air conditioning, quote, just as important as heat, which is already considered mandatory for landlords to provide. Do you agree with that statement?
Frankly, no, because in this country, if you don't have heat, then hundreds out of 1,000 people, or even 1,000 out of 1,000 people, would die with the lack of heat. With excess heat. There are multiple ways to address the problem. The city opens its facilities so that people can go in and stay in the air conditioning for several hours. There was a suggestion to cool your feet, cool your hands. As I said, some landlords of larger buildings provide a cool room in the building. Hopefully friends and or neighbors have AC so that one can get some cool during the hottest parts of the day.
So you're saying that as unpleasant as heat is, it's less likely to kill people than lack of heat.
Much less likely to kill people than lack of heat.
But what about Stuart's point that even old buildings that you are pointing out aren't made for central air? Even old buildings could have splits. These are the types of air conditioners that you find up on the wall that require only a small hole in the side of the wall. What about that? Doesn't that make it easier to retrofit even an old building?
Well, again, I think it varies building by building, because a small hole in some walls may not be a problem. In other walls, it may be a problem. Buildings come in all sorts of varieties, all sorts of cladding, all sorts of finishes, all sorts of insulation, all sorts of power capacities. We certainly believe that tenants' needs need to be attended to, but we dislike what I would call a one-size-fits-all solution. Again, there could be a variety of ways this could be handled, but some buildings may not be in a good place to handle any one of them, or it may be prohibitively expensive. I want to address
that question with Stuart, because I think that's getting at the heart of this. Stuart, if rules such as what Hamilton is doing is passed here in Ottawa, might there be some unintended consequences? Might there be a real risk that landlords would either pass on the cost to tenants or get out of the business entirely, resulting in fewer affordable units?
I certainly will not agree that having fewer landlords would result in fewer affordable units. I believe that landlords are responsible for the, in large part, the housing crisis that we are seeing simply by hoarding habitable space as a commodity. And as for passing costs on to renters, again, my building as an example, for myself to install this, I have looked into it. I've actually gone and received quotes for this type of thing. I would be looking at $2,000 to $2,500 to get a split system installed that would be extremely energy efficient, would not block my access to sunlight or ventilation. It would keep my place cooler than I'm able to do on my own with my current portable units. But there's over 220 units in my building. With that type of buying power, this would very easily be able to be brought down to $1,000 or $1,500 per unit. Okay. And we are also calling on the government to assist landlords with the cost of retrofitting older market rental housing stock, similar to how they will help homeowners get energy efficient improvements for their home. We want those same subsidies offered to landlords to offset the cost. With that kind of buying power, I can't speak for other provinces or territories, but at least in Ontario, with other funding options available and with the cost being so low on a per unit basis, we do not see that this could result in an above guideline increase. When the cost is so low per unit.
Thank you both so much. I'm sorry for stepping on your heels. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
John Dickie is the chair of